So welcome to another unboxing video from thePlayersAid.com. My name's Alexander, and today we're taking a look at Mr. President, the American Presidency 2001 to 2020, a game designed by Gene Billingsley. So this just came out from GMT Games, even though it says 2022 on it. This is just hitting people now, halfway through 2023. This is maybe one of the most long-awaited games that, for me personally, and I say that because when we kind of got into wargaming, it was initially with GMT, was kind of our first few titles, and Mr. President was like in the works back then, and that was only 2016, so it's only been 7 years, but like, this has been a long time coming, and I'm very excited to finally have it. So this is a solitaire game where you roleplay as the presidency, not the president, the presidency of the United States of America, because obviously you're going to go through more than just 2 terms. So this game is very big. Apparently you can play it with 1+ players, so maybe you can co-op this. I don't know if that would be an interesting option, because it is a big old game. It is huge. 8 to 12 hours. It is also spatially very large as well. There's a lot of stuff in this box. But as you can see, this has the fabled 4-inch box, which you don't see very often. But it is chock full of stuff. So, and there's just a lot in here. Okay. So the first thing you get is a nice kind of little brief from your predecessor, who leaves you a note on the Oval Office desk saying, "Hey, good luck," which I appreciate. And this is on like really nice kind of I don't even know what you would call that, but this is like really nice textured paper. Like they went all out for that little piece of bling, which I appreciate. I really do. Okay. Now there's a lot in here, and I will probably try to stop saying that, but as we go through and there's just more and more and more and more, just understand that this is a game that's going to happen in stages. So I don't think you're going to be using all the stuff all the time. It's like, hey, this stuff came up, or this stuff came up, or this stuff did, so just bear with me, okay? So I'm going to move this off to the side just so we can kind of focus on what we've got. So the first thing we have is a fully ring-bound turn sequence flip book. So like, you're going to play through all of this every turn. Now, some of the stuff is not going to be relevant every turn, but you're going to go through the flip book, and this is the course of like a game turn. So like, this is a ton of stuff. You're going to improve stuff, you're going to roll on some charts, you're going to interact with elements of the game. But, I don't know if they've got it in here. I was looking through this. Like, there's some stuff that, like, I know you probably won't come across. So, like, there's this whole perform war progress for wars and civil wars. So, like, I doubt you're going to be in a civil war for 19 years. You never know, but, like, so I think some of this stuff, it's like, hey, we're not currently conducting this particular thing. That was just one example I saw from, like, looking through this before I turned the camera on, where I'm like, yeah, this is a lot of stuff, but I don't know if you're going to be doing absolutely every detail of every single thing every turn. You may do, but some of the stuff, this looks overwhelming, but, And these are all, one other part of this is, each one of these pages is very thick card. So this is very sturdy, because you're going to flip through this a lot. So I appreciate that it wasn't just like a piece of paper and you're going to tear it to shreds. So, for a 4-inch box and that turn sequence book that was like 20 cardboard pages, we have a how to play that is a little 7-page booklet. So this is a very brief kind of overview of what the phases are about and what they encompass. So I think we're going to sell this. Look at this setup, okay? When we get the boards out, this is a huge board. Like this, I don't know if I can fit this on my table. That was one thing that I was worried about. Luckily, we've got a new table in the works. I know we've been talking about that for a while, but yeah. It's huge. I saw a picture that Gene posted with him Saturday when it's all laid out. It's massive. So just understand that you need a bit of space for this bad boy as well. So then we have the governing manual, and one other thing is that all of these manuals and book sheets have a little code on them. How to play HPB. How to play book, I presume. Governing manual, GM. So when I think some things will say, roll on the chart that's like GM 2.4 or whatever. So it's a little bit easier to kind of flip through everything as they all reference each other. My understanding is that this is the rule book. So this tells you everything that you can do within the confines of the system and the rules and all sorts of different stuff. This looks absolutely huge. So this booklet is only 47 pages, and there's a nice index on the back, which we also appreciate. But yeah, this is not a game for the faint of heart. There's a lot to digest in here, but I hope that maybe we can just kind of pick up and go and like do it chronologically through the turn sequence book, where we're like, at least for the first game, right? You're gonna lose, who cares? You're gonna just like, I'm gonna read the State of the Union section on the governing manual, page 25, only on turns 2 through 4. Like, I'm gonna do just this thing, right? And that's what I'm going to work through. And then we're going to move on to the next section. I'm going to look up the next section of the rules. And yeah, you might not have a better grasp for the context of things, but at least you're setting up and kind of working through it and playing it instead of reading a 50-page manual and then like 10 other page manuals. So yeah, these are the domestic charts. This is booklet D. So all sorts of different charts. I hope this game isn't a chart flipper. It does not look like one, but there is a significant element of chart flipping to it. But, you know, Greater Society Initiative. And, you know, you've got some things about, hey, what we're trying to do, what kind of bills are we trying to pass, what are we trying to do? And there's all sorts of, are we focusing on this and that? And what does that look like with roles and modifiers, right? That's just one chart. And we have our domestic terror table. The past is prologue. There's so much detail and stuff in here of like, hey, what's happened before? Let's roll on that to see where we're at and what people are thinking about with regards to how things used to be and what we want looking forwards. There's a scandal table, right? Was it a breaking scandal, a deepening scandal, or are we concluding a scandal and hopefully sweeping it all under the rug? There's an impeachment table. There's the good times. I'm fascinated to see what this game looks like and how it plays and the interplay of all of these rules and charts. I'm just very curious about it. Now we have the world charts, which includes diplomatic, military, world chart book, world diplomatic, world military, world terror, world combat table, which is all listed kind of down here. So this is, you've got your American domestic policy, and then you have all sorts of foreign policy stuff that's going on. So we're going to track what else is happening in the rest of the world, which, again, a ton of charts and a lot of decision points that you're going to be going through. But yeah, that's, again, I just have no idea what the scope of this is going to be like, and I'm just fascinated. Here we have the World Allies and Rogue States. So here we've got a book, possible joint actions with EU, NATO, Republic of Korea and Iran, UK, Japan, North Korea, all sorts of bits and pieces that can go on there. India, action table. We've had Australia, Israel, India, and Rogue. Then we have World Peer Russia Acts. So I presume, you know, World Peer or superpowers as you might call them. So this is the Russia book of what they're trying to do to affect you and how you're trying to either defend against those or embrace some of that stuff. Then we have the World Peer China Acts as well, which is kind of the other major superpower in this game. Excuse me, sorry, I rubbed my eye there. Something in my eye. Apologize for that. And again, this looks very similar in its makeup, at least. I'm sure it's very different from like the Rush Acts and the China Acts. These are two very similar books, obviously with just different results and things like that they're working towards that's kind of trying to affect you. Then we have our this is just paper, by the way. Presidential briefing, example of play, and designer notes. So the example of play, I think, might be a really good place to start. And I'm going to read through the example of play, what that looks like, and then I'm going to set up and I'm just going to like play through the flip charts in the rulebook. That is how I plan to approach this, because this is very daunting otherwise. And then at the very end we have designer notes down here. A big, interconnected, massively replayable monster game. That's how Gene describes it. So I'm very excited. Yeah, very curious. So now we have I believe the last book in here is the scenario book. So there's like 33 pages of scenarios. Welcome to the White House. So and this is a little discussion about what the scenario setup look like and how to read them. And then there's all sorts of different setups. So you can have different domestic situations, historical scenarios. So you can either just kind of wing it, or you can go through actual historical events timed and based on when they did it or didn't happen. Hopefully you can just kind of like play it as you want to do. That would be great. And maybe you can't. Maybe it's just those historical ones, historical scenarios. Yeah, can you just play it just as your own? That'd be wonderful. Because yeah, replaying history is fun, and that's why we play a lot of these games, but having it as a sandbox, surely that's doable. That would also be really good. So I believe that is all the paper in this game. Now we're going to fish out all these stacks. So there's a bunch of different boards that we'll get to here in just a second. But we have 5 counter sheets. Now these counter sheets are kind of the new style. These are gray core, but they're all pre-rounded, which I really appreciate that they're kind of going to that. It makes a big difference in kind of just like accessibility and frankly looking nice. But there's all sorts of different markers which are going on all the different holding boxes on the boards and on various different tracks, excuse me. And just looking at these, just briefly, these all look very crisp and very clear. So again, if I'm playing a solo, I really care about my game being easy to use. I think I care about that probably a little bit more than it looking nice. Like I really want it to be functional. And those both look nice with nice saturated colors, but also I can read all the words on those because they use a very clear typeface, and I'm very happy with that. We have a couple of play aids. I presume this is just condensed versions of what's in there in that governing manual, the rules. So we have the domestic master actions. This is just like the normal stuff you can do. We have presidential master actions. We have military master actions. And then we have diplomatic master actions. So once we kind of get everything down, we've got that flip chart that we're probably always going to keep, and then maybe just these play aids we can get away with. Because these look like they have a good amount of detail on here. It's not just like step 1, step 2, step 3. It's not a list of the steps. Like that has explanation for each one of those. So hopefully we can get away with getting into that quite quickly. Here's all of the kind of boards and cardboard, and we'll kind of open these up and show you what we've got here. Okay. Let's get it this way around for you. So, immediately you can see why there was 5 sheets of counters. There was a lot of holding boxes and a lot of tracks on here. And this is the ultimate game of spinning plates. So, very loosely we have the kind of global map that's kind of cut up with some emphasis put on certain areas. So you've got Europe, Eastern Europe, we got the Middle East, you know, we got China, down here we got Asia and the Pacific, South America, continental United States, I believe is what that's called, Central America, right? So, and each of those has a regional alignment and stability track, but they also have like these little mini boxes for different tensions between countries as well. We've got a holding box for any US forces that are deployed there. All of these different boxes here, and there's a regional crisis level track as well. And everyone's got those, but then there's also this like massive turn sequence track. And what I understand is that you're going to go like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, and you're going to have these 4 activation phases, and you're going to have final activations as well. There is a presidential prestige track. There is a legacy points track. There is a public approval track as well. I mean, this game is massive. You also have like boxes for who's your vice president, who's your chief of staff, and your public legislation priorities. So what do you prioritize over other things, right? Then, this is where we start getting into the science of it, right? So this is 22 by 34. Then we also have this other massive board as well that I can't remember which side it goes on. Probably goes on this side. But like, it's half of a 22 by 34. So what is that? 22 by 17, I think. This has our strategic capabilities track, space warfare. We've got our decks for all of our cards that we're going to have, all of our conflict tracks that are going on in the world. So already this game takes up like almost my whole table this way. But then there's also a holding card for just like holding stuff. All of our tensions markers. Like this is just like a holding chart. Then we have a war chart as well of all the different wars that we may or may not be in or that are ongoing. So like these have to go somewhere too. You know, and then you've got all your different play aids and your flip chart as well. So when I say this is a large game, spatially it's big. It's not. This is not for the faint of heart, is what I would say. But finally, we have the last stuff in here is this little shipping insert that we'll throw away. So you get 2 dice. You got a red D10, which has a 10 on it, not a 0. And then we have a blue D6. And we have these decks of cards. And the decks of cards, one would presume, are going to line up. We have a crisis deck, we have a reshuffle pile, and we have 2 deck and 3 deck. I don't know if those are lined up with these, or these all get shuffled and kind of moved around. But let's open these up and have a look. Ooh. And these are your vintage, extremely stiff out of the box GMT cards. So you're not gonna, you have to kind of break these in almost. But all of these cards have the same backing on them. And there is a lot of text and options on these. So you're going to go through and they have all sorts of different things going on in here. All sorts of different cards that can come up. And I presume half of these are what kind of like fuel your crises. Hey, this bad stuff happens. Let's try to fix it. And there is a ton of different ones for these as well. I mean, there's multiple decks of these. This is a lot of cards, a lot of events, all those different billions of charts that we looked through. So you're never going to have the same experience twice in this game, other than it's the experience of trying to spin all the plates and do as best you can, right? But what that looks like in the minutiae and the actuality of your gameplay will look very, very different. But I appreciate you for sticking with me. What was... This is one of the biggest games of the year, volumetrically. It's huge. I'm very, very interested to play this to see if it can be what I hope that it can be. It looks awesome. It looks like it can be really, really cool. Just know that you need space for this game. It needs space to breathe from a, you know, table space standpoint and from a time standpoint. You know, 8 to 12 hours is not a short time to play a big solo game. So understand that that's what you're getting yourself going into it, but appreciate you very much for tuning in. This is Mr. President from GMT Games. I'm extremely excited to play this game, and will let you know as soon as I possibly can about, you know, initial thoughts and things like that once I've got some plays under it. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. I've been Alexander from theplayersaid.com.